for taking this time today to share your reflections, if you will, about your career. Pete, the same thing to you, brother. Thank you for your service. You know I love you with all my heart, and really glad that today we made the decision for the three of us to come on board like this. And I think the best way to start the show today, guys, is that each one of us give a short bio to the audience so they have an understanding of just exactly who we are and why today we wanted to create this specific type of interview. And Chuck, if that would be okay with you, if we could start with you. And good morning, brother.
All right. I'm Chuck Ritter. I am still in the United States Army. I've been in the Army for 27 years now. I'll be out in 3 months. I originally wanted to be out 2 years ago, but I recently had my 34th surgery due to job and combat-related injuries. I was going to get out, and then I found out both my hips were dead. And I was like, you know what? Me and the Army did that together, so let's go ahead and fix that together so I'm not just out being an invalid for 2 years while I'm fixing some dead hips, on top of a bunch of other surgeries. So I'm a Special Forces Sergeant Major, started my career as a young infantryman, and then worked my way up into being a Green Beret, and I've traveled the world. Oddly enough, I speak French for my job, but I've never had a chance to go to Africa. So I've always spent most of my time in Southwest Asia and the Middle East. And I've had a test out every year on French. Never got a chance really, except for one time I worked with the French in Afghanistan, which they're actually pretty cool. Actually pretty impressive. We make fun of the French a lot, but their special operations were like, I was like, man, you guys are making us look like amateurs. And they wore some weird tight pants in the gym I didn't appreciate. And they, their officers are just a little bit strange, but so yeah, I get out in July. I'm right in the middle of my last stretch of retirement stuff, and that's me in a nutshell. My claim to fame, I guess, is I get shot and blown up a lot. So overcoming and resilience. I've died on the operating table at least once. I've had to relearn how to walk again a couple times. So it's a 2-part lesson. Maybe I should be a little bit faster. Like there's a thing we call the 3 to 5 second rush on the battlefield. I think I do like 6 seconds. And then the other one is just being able to overcome critical injuries. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, Chuck, thank you so much. And brother, thank you again for your service to our country. That's a lot of years in the Special Forces, and certainly going to be an interesting discussion today. And like we were talking before the show started, how far the VA has come. I originally started going to the VA in 1974 when I came back stateside and went through the process there. And here I am today with it. And I'm 70 years old now, Chuck. And I'm just so grateful for how far the Veterans Administration has progressed, taking care of guys like us. I was captured and tortured and rescued in Central America on a mission that it still never leaves me in the jungles there every damn night when I wake up in the middle of it, fighting it and combating it. And they've come so far now with PTSD. Vietnam taught us the need for having these kind of programs accelerate and become more invasive, if you will, as we're struggling through it. Pete is also a PTSD, and so are you, Chuck. We all are. But anyway, getting on to that, Pete, give a little bio on your background, brother.
Sure. I'm Pete A. Turner. I run the Break It Down show, and I used to be a combat spy. So my job would be to go link up with guys like Chuck or an Army unit and just figure out how to help them, help the commander win more, lose less, help the enemy lose more and win less, and find out whatever the information was that would allow us to do those things. And I've got over 1,000 combat missions. I've been outside the wire a lot. And so with that comes a lot of damage, physical, mental, and the PTSD and all those things. Because I talk to people for a living, when I was doing that, and you hear a lot of horrible things, and you just sort of internalize it and keep moving and try to disassociate, and then at some point, all that stuff that bill has to get paid. And so, I work with Hal here. Also, I'm his producer for his show, and it's awesome to be here. And I love Hal as well. So I'm going to slide out of the way here and let Hal get back to it.
Okay, and my brief bio on all this was in 1991 to 1994, I was the primary target of Operation Northern Exposure. I was the Sinaloa drug cartel's #1 man in the Pacific Northwest. I was moving 1/4 to 1/3 of a ton of cocaine a month at the time. I had finally hit a point. I got married, had a child born, and had decided I didn't want to raise my children up in that type of an environment. So I flew down to Culiacan, sat down at the table of the bosses, made an agreement with them that I could go ahead and back out. And at that time, I could replace my post and my position with somebody else that would be familiar with the territory. lots of hugs, lots of handshakes, lots of bullshit, if you will. And I got back home and found a third of a ton of cocaine sitting in my driveway with 2 sicarios waiting for instruction. Because I had underboss status, I had the ability to turn the load around, get them the hell out of there. And the following day, I walked into the U.S. Attorney's office, and I said, "I'm Hal Bradley," and they said, "Oh my God, Hal Bradley just walked in," and I was the primary target at that time. Like I said, 91 to 94. And I offered my services to take down the entire Pacific Northwest faction, to be inserted south of the American border and start paying back the enormous debt that I will forever owe this country and this society. And it was an honor to be able to serve with the people that I did, take down the primary targets that we went after. We had great success. I did end up going to Leavenworth Federal Prison. I was hit with an 8-year sentence, and about halfway through it, I was approached by the Department of Justice up in the warden's office, and they said, "How'd you like to become a contractor for the Department of Justice and work for your country?" Well, I immediately accepted the offer. A few days later, I was flown back to Seattle, brought it before a judge, and that's how it all began. Ultimately, when I retired out in 2018, I had completed 17 years of undercover operations. And to give you a focus and a slant on just the enormity of that, as was told to me by several agents from several agencies that I've worked with, they said, normally a guy in your position lasts 4 or 5 years before they get whacked, or they just can't take the stress of it. And hell, I made it 17 years. And it was an honor to be able to not only say I'm sorry to all of you, but to be able to show it by example. And Chuck, I was telling you before the show started how I had the opportunity to work with a few spec op teams. One of them I can share with you. Some of those are still classified, so I can't. But one of them was Special Forces Team 5. They were based down in Panama at the time. And what they did was they escorted me up to Chicago. I was having a meeting with the primary target of the Sinaloa cartel at that time. A very dangerous target, obviously. So they were up there to cover support, and in the event that anything went down, they were on the spot in that instant to secure it. And I will forever be grateful for them for being there, because it was a hard target. Later, I went to Tucson and was working operational in Tucson against the #1 target in that region for the Sinaloa drug cartel, and we got him. We took him out. And so I understand the significance of what the teams go through with regard to being in focus on site to professionally secure my safety and the safety of agents that I may or may not be inserting into a specific case at that time. I was kidnapped in Culiacan. It was hard. I was being severely physically and psychologically treated. I mean, I had a bag over my head. I was suspended from the ceiling, constantly being beaten, gun put into my ear, and the trigger pulled repeatedly. And every time I hear the click, even to this day, which is almost 2 decades later, I still have a catatonic moment, if you will. But then I heard American voices screaming, coming into the site. I was taken to a hard site, and what it was about, Chuck and Pete, was I was down there getting ready to do a 3,000 kilo eyes-on purchase from a general in the Mexican army. And his direct contact who owned those kilos was the president of Mexico's brother. So this is like a very high profile and political target assessment. Now, he was working with the Cali drug cartel, the Ochoas, and that particular group at the time. And I was blown off the road. I had 2 civilians with me, Mexican nationals that were affiliated with the deal, connecting me with the guy that was taking me to the Culiacan airport to climb in a helicopter at the general and go out and secure an eyes-on of the 3,000 kilos that they were offering my, quote, Canadian counterparts, unquote. That was the identity I was running under at the time of captivity. And anyway, I was rescued, and I found out later that the whole thing was never even meant to get that far because of the political ramifications. And Chuck, Pete, I know you both understand how messages or missions can go sideways in a heartbeat with regard to people that aren't even in the damn field with us. They're not even associated at that. They're just thinking about the politics. And boy, nothing pisses me off more than that. And the second time I was down in Mexico City and I came out of the embassy, I'd just gotten debriefed there and on a mission I was working. And I got approached by 2 agents that were out of El Salvador. And they took me to a restaurant and sat me down and explained to me that they had information about when I was in Leavenworth that I had made a friendship with a MS-13 general. And I acknowledged that and confirmed it. And what he had done is he had written a letter back to El Salvador. And in that letter, he had made mention of my name and said that I was his friend in the prison system and that, maybe I would be able to be of assistance. Well, these guys obviously knew that I was already a contractor. I was operational. So they said, we'll give you $75,000 for a 2-day incursion. We want to infiltrate one of our agents into the MS-13. You seem to have the slot that can make this available, so we'll do it. So anyway, I flew into San Salvador. I met the agent. We went to a black site there, spent a day and a half briefing and preparing for it. And we headed north and went in. I remember we went into this restaurant. We go out the back door of the restaurant and we're both immediately grabbed, knocked unconscious, thrown in the back of a truck, and we're driven away. And for the next 7 weeks, I was moved almost daily with this agent. We were in what they call dry camps, if you're familiar with that term, Chuck. So it's just a mobile camp in the jungle where water is brought in. You're covered by a few of their guys, and they just constantly relocate. And what it turned out was they always knew that he was an undercover agent, and that's why they grabbed us. So we feigned that I had no knowledge of his status and the daily beatings that we endured, waiting for imminent death. During the entire 7 weeks before we were rescued was after a while, I don't know really how to explain it to people that haven't been there, but there's a numbness that comes upon you, the expectation of death, of the inability to sustain, if you will, any reasonable way of seeking how to escape, how to evade, how to survive, if you will, and to get one another out of that environment. And I remember the last day of our captivity, what had happened the night before, the water truck, the 2 guys that were going down and getting water where they would drive to wherever we were being held on that particular time would come back and we would get water that way. But while they were in town and getting water, they were approached by the intelligence agency of the Salvadorian government, and they poured a liquid into the water that caused an extreme nausea effect to every one of us that drank the water. So what they did was they immobilized the people that were watching us, and they came in and they hit the camp. They killed everyone in there. I can remember full well, I was laying in there puking my guts out, and so was Manny, the agent that was with me. Guy was coming up to us, and he has rifle leveled at us, and we knew we were dead. And all of a sudden, he just kind of disintegrated in front of me. And I remember after they cut the straps off of us, our hands were strapped, and that I was sitting there wiping body parts off the side of my face and my shoulder, and we're grabbed up, and they took Manny and they put him in. They took him one way and took me another. We were both loaded into helicopters, and I never saw Manny again after that. And I think of him every single day, of course. But I got taken to a site. I remember the nurse on the medevac flight. She was so kind. I couldn't speak. I was just crying. I couldn't make words form. Even right now, it's so hard to talk about it. But this was my experience. This is a part of the journey, if you will, of what we go through when we're trying to say how sorry we are for the sins that we committed in our younger years and the commitment. And Pete's got, I think, Pete, you actually have a copy of the document that explains how I was captured and tortured and what I went through in the service of my country to pay back. And the problem with the system, Chuck, is because I wasn't in uniform, that I was a contractor, is I can't get any veteran benefits for captivity. Although in 2003, there were 7 of us that were recognized at a ceremony at the Seattle VA hospital. And we were all given 2 survival patches to sew on our clothes and a letter of thanks and all of that kind of stuff. But my only contact that I've had dealing with PTSD for the last couple of decades was my friend. He was a Green Beret. His name was Captain Robert. Captain Robert was a prisoner of war. And November before last, he called me up, told me goodbye, don't bother coming by, and took his life. It was over. He just couldn't live with it any longer. And I think of him every day. So Pete's kind of been my fill-in for that, someone that I can talk to in private about some of the things we deal. And Chuck, I know you understand all of this. You've been down that rabbit hole a lot more than I have, I'm sure. But anyway, guys, that's my bio. That's my story. And that's also one of the founding reasons that I created the Crisis Victory Show. One thing I haven't shared with you, Chuck, is that during my time in prison, I entered my seminary years. I became a certified hospice counselor for fellow dying prisoners. Took 24 of them through the actual dying process. I was in newspapers, TV, all kinds of crazy stuff. And yeah, you know, it's just while you're locked up and while you're doing that kind of time, do something productive and creative. And today I celebrate my 26th year as a senior pastor of the Full Gospel Pentecostal Federated Church Association. I was reordained when I came out of federal prison by Bishop Samuel Lafall in Seattle, and have been with the organization 26 years. He has passed. His wife, the co-pastor of the senior church, has recently passed, and had 25 glorious years with her and under great training. And I work primarily in homeless camps. I work in trap houses. The Veterans Administration provides me with Narcan kits, so when overdose cases are brought to my residence here, I'm able to do what I can before I have to 911 it in. So I'm extremely active in the church ministry, but I'm active in outreach program services, working with the people that 30 years ago I was the problem that created so many of them. So it's really funny how things turn around in life, and we can take from a bad scenario of our life and end up benefiting and doing wellness and good things with it as a result of the knowledge we have surviving all of that. So anyway, I'd like to move on to Chuck, if that's okay at this time. And Chuck, I'd like you to share some of your experiences to the audience, to let them have an understanding and a knowing that just specifically what it's like when we're outside the wire, what we go through psychologically, and where we go as we're there with one another that have gone through these type of scenarios, and where it takes us today. So the floor is yours, brother.
Before I do that, just going back to your story and what you said, I think that's interesting because my editor-in-chief for, this thing called Objective Arte that I have behind me, which serves as a clearinghouse for all things that can help people, right? But my editor-in-chief is a guy named Ayman Kafel. He's Lebanese. He survived 2 civil wars, one in Africa and one, in Lebanon when he was younger. He came to America, joined the U.S. military, combat veteran, and now he's a law enforcement officer. He does very high-risk things, like with gang stuff and part of a SWAT team in his current job. But he wrote this article, and I just think it hits. He released this just a couple of days ago. It's called "Burden Bearers: Carrying the Echoes of the Fractured Soul," and his whole thing is about how. And I just want to read a statement because just what you were saying is like, wow, that's crazy that you're telling us, and this is just something that we've been talking about. But he says, hey, my first exploration of this phrase burden bearer, he's like, I believe that these are individuals who take on the weight of others' struggles, challenges, emotional pain, and they're generally a source of support and strength. But these can be like your law enforcement or people that work in ambulances, or people like you just told a whole story about how, you were there with people when they died. And the whole article goes about how these people are necessary in life, but what others don't see is the emotional strain and the toll it takes on the burden bearers, and how you have to come up with mechanisms to actually almost get rid of that, right? Because it'll destroy you mentally, even though it's not your pain and suffering that you're going through, because you're shouldering it for other people, and you have your own stuff to deal with too. It's just an interesting thing that I've never really thought about it in the way that you just described it, and the way Ayman talks about it, because obviously I haven't been through those types of experiences like to that level. That's just an interesting concept that I think that maybe we need to have more discussions about, because I think
it's extremely important to have a discussion about it, Chuck. We have 22 veterans a day committing suicide in the country. That's the current rate. And you know what, brother? It's programs like you're trying to discuss. And I'd certainly like a link to that, by the way. Those kind of programs are just invaluable. But again, Chuck, a lot of that reverts back to the Vietnam era, when so many people were. My brother was wounded in action in Vietnam. He was in Quezon 68, 69. And there's so many of them that still struggle to this day with it. But now we're finding avenues and we're finding programs like what you're trying to introduce here right now. And I hope you do introduce here right now that'll benefit us. So we don't get a call from another brother saying, I love you, I'm checking out, and then they're dead and gone as a result of surviving this. So I'd like for you to share a little bit more information about that. That's important to me.
Yeah. So, it's on the screen, objectivearte.com.
Yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I'll send you the direct link to that article too, but there's a lot of just crap out there with people trying to like sell the secret to success, the secret to overcoming. And the reality, there's no secret. It takes habit and dedication, and you got to find tools. You got to build a proper mindset, but you got to build the tool sets to go along with that if you want to be successful. So what we're doing with this company is, it's not going to make a ton of money. I don't care about that. The emails I get every day are from somebody that read an article, listened to a podcast episode, or heard me, give some advice on, hey, like read this or try these things, and this really helped me out. That's what drives me in life. I think when it comes to, we're talking about overcoming as we get older and we get out of the military, I think we got to continue to find our purpose, the things that drive us, because even though we do, everybody has emotional scars, even if people that even weren't in the military, I would say that your standard ambulance person, right, sees more traumatic stuff than a lot of military people. But how do you overcome those things? And I think that those are the kind of discussions we're trying to make normal, because I think that they're still taboo, especially in your macho jobs like law enforcement or the military, right, where nobody wants to seem like this weak person. But I think we should make it cool again to, hey, we're humans, man. We are effed up, right? We are fallible. We're often wrong, and you're going to be weak, and that's okay. It's cool to have emotions. It's cool to be sad. That's just a normal human thing. It's cool to be depressed sometimes. That's just your body saying, hey, man, like this is something you struggle with. And sometimes when it gets out of hand, you really got to, address it in different ways to be able to get us in these black holes you'll find yourself in. But just trying to make it like, hey guys, let's just make being human, like the art of being good human beings, cool again, and create a community of people that they want to be selfish and invest in themselves so that they can be more valuable, and can in turn invest in other people. And then a community of people that holds each other accountable and calls each other on our BS, right? But also, we're always moving towards not just sitting there like wallowing in our own self-pity, but always have a goal. Like for you two, you guys have podcasts. You have things that drive you, that allow you to achieve fulfillment day. Like, hey, I did this. I just put this episode on with 3 pretty cool people, right? Like you said, it's kind of like a first for you guys. Like, that's cool. That's something that you're doing instead of sitting there like, man, everything sucks. Like, yeah, man, life sucks. Life is never gonna stop kicking you in the balls. It's just not. It's just what it is, right? But how do you take those experiences and then turn them into something, transmute them into a win, right? So that's what we're doing there.
I love that, Chuck. That's exactly what the Crisis Victory Show is about. Exactly what you just started sharing there. That's what we need more and more of. There's a humanitarian part in each and every one of us that needs to resurface, even when we come out of extreme circumstances such as I had just described briefly in mine. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, my God, I know that Pete's been through a lot, and I know you have too. But you know what? We have to lift up one another. And it isn't just about ego and telling a great story. It's the exact opposite of that. What we're doing is we're sharing an experience that we have survived, and we're committed to helping and assisting other people do the same thing in kind. And it doesn't matter if they were in the military. It doesn't matter if they were in a tent in a homeless camp and something horrific happened. But what does matter is the humanitarian slant and the ability to step forward, like you said, Chuck, and do all we can do for one another, because this is a crazy world, and I don't think it's going to get any better. But the caregivers that are driving those ambulances, those paramedics that you were raising up in this conversation, yeah, well, you got to know their PTSD is at maximum level. And how do they diffuse? They diffuse by connecting with people like us that have similar understandings, and we can talk one another down. And I remember my PTSD doctor, my second one, said, Dr. Bradley, what you got to do is understand that will never, ever leave your mind. Those nightmares come back for a purpose. He says, but you need to learn how to pull it out, talk to it, and tuck it back in because it will never leave you. So what we do then, and Pete and I talked about this, we make peace with it, and then we move on to the next event that life's going to present to us. So yeah, Chuck, I like that, and I'm definitely going to look this up after we get off the air today and examine it. And I thank you for bringing it out to this audience today, that people can become aware that there is hope, that there is understanding, and there are people like all of us, Chuck, that are reaching out at this time to be there for them in whatever capacity is needed to be. And yeah, Pete, why don't you share some of yours? You've worked with me now for a few years. You understand the concept of giving back. Your show gives back. I follow your episodes like crazy. And I love, no, I'm saying this with sincerity, because what you do is you equate people to have an understanding of the various lifestyles that are out there, that we're all coexisting within each other, and to find and seek the goodness in each one of these traumas. And I love that. And so share. Your turn.
One of the things I would say about all this, my job in particular is very dangerous in the military, because I've got to go out and I've got to purposely look for the evilest people, the warlords, and the people that are going to do bad things. And I got to cozy up to them, because if I can deflate the danger in the area by getting to know them and building trust with them, well, then everybody hopefully is. I've done my job and I've reduced the amount of potential damage that happens. And that means you got to talk to monsters, and you got to befriend those people and align yourself with them in a lot of ways, so they can identify with me and I can identify with them. And so hopefully I can do that work of flipping that person, or at least reducing the danger that they have. And there's a lot of damage that comes with that, because these guys, they've taught me, the warlord rules, and it's a lot of it's like, this is business, or whatever, this is survival. And so yes, I killed that guy, but he had it coming, and it's a competition. Everything. This is why I learned this. Everything is a competition. when you have those lessons and you swallow all that pain and everything, or disassociate for as long as you can, there's still those wounds there. Chuck had mentioned, yesterday I had a guy, I was on his show, and he was a cop, he was an EMT, he was a 911 operator, and I'm like, oh my God,
Jesus,
it's a lot of hard stuff. And we think about 911 as a place you call, but the person on the other end is hearing, for their job, they hear the worst day of someone's life over and over again, and they're desperate for help. That EMT, you go out, you put your hands on somebody, and you're a pro, and you lose them for some reason, that stays with you. Like, what could I have done? For me, when I would go outside the wire, I need to be outside the wire. I need to find out where that dangerous thing is, so I can potentially save my friends who are on my side. And so there's this maybe Chuck, you'll get this. Like, for me, when I'm going out, like, let's say that I'm supporting your ODA, I'm desperate to try to help you guys stay safe in a way that you guys don't have to worry about. But that means that there's always this tension. It's always, I'm always like, oh my gosh, I got to get out and go find this thing. And it's not always findable, or just by looking for it, you reduce so it's the activity of it. But it's a lot of tension. There's a lot of waiting. And then obviously if you go out enough times, you're going to get shot at, blown up, all these things that have happened to Chuck and I. It happens. And then you got to go back out into that space again. And so I have to maintain my humanity so I can relate with people who are, from any normal American's point of view, inhuman. And then I have to go back and write a report about it, think about it, dream about it, and try to get smart about all that stuff every day, day after day. Same for 911 operators, same for ambulance people. There's a lot of damage in the day-to-day activity. So it's not just cataclysmic events. It's that reliance on cortisol, where my body is like, hey, this is how we do this. We drink an energy drink and we go back out, and it's a 20-hour day, and you hear the worst stories from all the people who are suffering, and we're failing them. Oh my gosh, it's horrible on your soul.
Yeah, that's just remarkable. I could feel it as you were describing it, and I'm sure Chuck can too. I think that with the programs like Chuck was just sharing with us there, is as wonderful it is that we can relate to other people that have gone through a similar or shared experience that we have, that we turn to in our time of dealing with the sleepless nights and the fear of falling asleep because you know what's going to come next, and that's the dreams and the memories. Chuck is saying that now there are other alternatives that people like us that work in these specific high energy jobs, if you will be able to have other options that'll be more affordable on the table. Am I correct, Chuck? Is that basically what your program is sharing?
No, so it's not. It will be affordable. So when we actually offer what the services that we're going to put in August, it's going to be affordable, but it's going to be a lot of work for people. So I'm not offering like this 3-day camp people can go do and get all the secrets of success, but I want you to commit to yourself for 3 months. If you're gonna pay to be part of this program, you're gonna sign a pledge, and you're gonna be 3 months. You're gonna dedicate to yourself, because we believe that you should be selfish. Because if you can be selfish for the right reasons, that allows you to become more valuable human beings. So this 3-month program, it's going to be 2 nights a week at night. They'll be filmed for the people that can't make it, but it's going to be a substantial amount of homework, because for the first 4 weeks, it's all self-assessment, self-evaluation, digging deep into what drives you. Who are you now as this imperfect person, but what's your ideal self? And then what are some of the things and habits you can start building in your life to get you towards being a more virtuous person, being this ideal, which you'll never achieve because you're a human being and you're incredibly imperfect. But how do you start moving the needle towards that, so you can really, success and fulfillment are different, right? You can be, you can be very rich and be unhappy. You can be very poor and be happy. So let's not confuse those things. So what really provides you fulfillment, and how can you become a powerhouse and a juggernaut to where life can't stop you? And then we'll move on to 2 weeks of kind of self-efficacy, where you're going to have to take a bunch of stories from your past that you feel developed you, and then some stories from your future where you're going to sit on your deathbed and look back and like, okay, well, what does fulfillment really look like for me? And you're going to have to share these with other people through writing and through oral means. And then we're going to move through the 6 weeks of the pragmatic phase, which is really getting to like talking about mental health, mental performance. And this isn't just me. I've got a bunch of experts. Like on our board of advisors is the head of the mental development for the Philadelphia Phillies, right? So I know that I'm not the best leader or the smartest person. I just have a lot of really smart friends. And it's really, this whole thing is, I get to learn and I get to share it with other people, and I get to bring in people. Anyway, we go through the pragmatic phase where, you come out the end and you actually have the tool set. Now we've talked about the mindset, build a tool set where you come out the end trying to just build this mindset of, hey, I've got to continually invest in myself. This doesn't end until it does. Like, life is there until the day we die. And it doesn't matter. You could be the most badass person ever up to this point here, but then nobody cares. Like, what are you bringing to the table today for you, for your family, for your community, for society? And it doesn't end until the day you move over. So let's continue to invest in ourselves, invest in other people. It's not rest on our laurels, not be like, well, shit, I got all this money, so I'm good. Like, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything, right? Like, what did you actually do to make a difference, a positive? And just really, people focus on yourself. I think a lot of problems with PTSD and other things, I think our egos get in the way, right? For what I've seen, there's been a lot of people lately that I've reached out to that I've been really surprised in the past few years that I would have never thought would be in a bad place. I mean, these are people I looked up to. Like, I'm like, man, this is the strongest person I've ever met, worked with. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I was close to suicide, or I'm in this bad place, or their spouse tells me that they're in this bad place. And I'm like, man, when I really started thinking about it, these people that got out, and a lot of them were kind of pissed when they got out for different reasons, but it's almost like our egos get in the way. Like, I can't possibly be weak. So then you try to fight it. And as you try to fight this thing, you find yourself going towards, well, I can't cope with it, so I'm going to go to alcohol. I can't cope with it, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, right? Eventually you get to a point where, like, well, instead of just saying like, no, it's okay to be weak. It's okay to be in these bad places because that's part of being a human. Let's actually deal with the problem and figure out how to get out of the hole versus just trying to fight it. Right. And I think that if you really have more self-awareness, I think that helps out a lot. And breaking your own ego, I think that, ego is important. Ego is just your sense of self-worth. But, on one extreme, you have to where you don't have any self-confidence at all. And on the other extreme, you have the hubris window where you're arrogant, right? You want to, I like to operate right on that line of the hubris, not be in it. And sometimes, oftentimes I'll get in there, right? And I'll need somebody to kick me in the nads and check my ego. I think that's maybe once a quarter. We need that. It's pretty healthy. Like, hey, you're not as cool as you think you are.
I agree with that completely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So, I think that's what we're trying to get around with this program. Because for me, it's very easy in special operations and special forces like me to have a big ego. And I've seen it, and I've been there myself, obviously, many times, where people they're huffing their own oxygen, they're believing in their own hype, And, you know,
Yes.
that call to power fallacy to be like, well, I'm obviously in this position. So if I'm here, that must mean I'm right. Or other people are like, well, they're in that position. So if they're there, that must mean they know what they're talking about. Like, no, man, that's not that extra rank or that position it doesn't give you like all this extra knowledge and awesomeness. You're still the same dumbass you were 6 months ago, a year ago. You're just now in a different position. Right. So step back, realize that you're still a human being. You're probably wrong somewhere. It's going to take some other people to probably point that out. And you're there to make decisions, but you don't have to be this badass who knows everything. You should be knowledgeable, right? You should continue to educate yourself. But I think that, yeah, it's easy to like, man, I'm so awesome. Like none of us at any given day, none of us are as awesome or as horrible as we think we are. We're all freaking humans. You know, I mean, there's exceptions. Like, you know, we got some Einsteins out there. We got some people out there that are truly at levels that are way above anything I could ever comprehend. But for most of us, we're just humans.
I get that, but you know, the goal objective, and I love how you bring ego into the forum, because that is the biggest combative segment, if you will, that each and every one of us do find that we encounter and confront at some point or another. But then after a while, that ego starts to dissipate when we recognize our own inner frailties. And I go back to what the PTSD doctor had told me, which I shared with Pete in one of our private conversations, is, Chuck, that stuff doesn't go away, but you do have to find a semblance of making peace with it and tucking it back inside of yourself, because you're going to have to live with it. And your kind of program, the goal objective, is very real. It's concise, and you're putting the burden of recovery on the individual that's seeking recovery. And I like that, because that's not real common in a lot of the treatment programs.
Mm-hmm.
What they try to do is temper the fears and temper the remembering, if you will, of the incidents that put you in that situation in the first place. And
right. Yeah.
you know, and it's so easy to give up on it. 10 months ago, Pete, Chuck, I walked down the hall to commit suicide, and I just couldn't take waking up in that jungle anymore. I couldn't deal with it. And I think I talked to you about that, Pete, at that time. But what happened was I hit the VA hotline, told them what I was ready to go do. And I mean, immediately they jumped into play, connected me with a doctor that I have to this day. And he talked me through it, because it doesn't go away. But you know, you can't seek the guidance from other people like you're talking about, Chuck. We have to first do the work within ourselves. And once that becomes a reality, then the path to recovery and serving starts becoming more clear. It is the objective point in each and every one of us that are dealing with that. Whether you're a paramedic in the back of the ambulance, keeping someone alive, or you're out in the field piecing a brother together, trying to keep him breathing, or whether you're just going day to day in trap houses or the homeless camps like I've been doing for 19 years, and dealing with watching a couch full of young girls taking their turn to go in a back bedroom to trade their flesh for a $20 fix, and watching 3 young boys sitting at a kitchen table sharing the same needle and absolutely hating the life that they're just constantly recreating for themselves. And how do you come back from that? Being an observant to such horrible things. And these are not military things, Chuck. These are day-to-day things that are happening within our societies. And these people need to get real, like you're talking about. And the real comes from first identifying the problem within your own self, and then finding a path to pulling yourself away from it. But it takes more than that. I think that we also have to learn how to not say I'm sorry to myself, but by example, get out there and do something about it. And that's what triggered me about your program and what you just shared. And thank you.
Right. I mean, I think that accountability piece is important, but mental therapy is no different than physical therapy. It's not, I'm going to go to see this person, they're going to fix me. No. Like, just like a physical therapist, you're going to go in there. The physical therapist is going to maybe do 5-10%, if that. Yeah. The rest of it, he's going to give you exercises that you have to work on long term. Like, you're not just go home and do whatever it gives you, and it's like, ta-da! Like, no. And the reality, just kind of like mental stuff, if you had an injury, it's probably not going to go away, right? Like, you're just you're going to find a point to where it's acceptable, and you can work through it and you can operate with it. And then you don't just like, okay, now it's fixed. No. Now you have to implement those things into your daily activities so you can stay at a place where you're not in pain. Yes. The concept is no different for mental health. Like, everybody tries to differentiate between mental and physical. That's the same concepts, right? Like I remember what's the old verbiage, like time heals all wounds? Like that's not true.
No, that's not true at all.
In time, you just learn how to cope with it, and it becomes manageable, right?
Yes.
And if you stop doing the habits you've implemented or the tool or whatever it is you implemented to keep it manageable, it's going to go back to being unmanageable.
I agree with that. Pete, what do you think? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, everything you guys are saying is, a lot of the path that I have been on, and Chuck and I talked about this on his episode that I'm going to publish on my show, but there's a responsibility to yourself to work on figuring out what it means. And, like, look, a lot of us are really tough and we've done really amazing things and we are good at hand-to-hand combat and all these other stuff. But the second it comes to sitting down with someone and working on ourselves and taking it just as seriously, like, oh, what kind of mixed martial artist are you? Well, I used to do boxing, but that wasn't my thing. And then I got into wrestling and then I got into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But what I really love is karate or whatever it is, right? We go on this journey, we put ourselves through a lot. But when it comes to getting better, like I tried group therapy once. I didn't like it. Did you try a different group? Did you try individual therapy? Did you try swimming with dolphins? Did you try sailing and all these other things that help you deal with who you are? And man, we get so soft and we don't take care of ourselves for whatever reason. Like we just kind of give up on that and then, go to a bottle or drugs or guns. And all of a sudden you're in a way worse position because we didn't take our well-being as seriously. So like a program like Chuck has where you're compelled to go through this thing and it's for you to get better so that you can look, when I had my ankle rebuilt, right, I did the physical therapy. Well, you have to do the same thing with the mental side and the emotional side because if you don't, then you have to pay this bill. And that doesn't mean I get away from my daily bout of suicidal ideation, right? I'm manageable today, but that's because I've put in a lot of work on that. And you can't do everything, but for me, that's important. If I need to slow down, and Hal, you and I know this. Some days, this is the day just for surviving. It's not a day for anything else. There's no work needed today, and that's fine. It's totally fine.
Yes, I agree with that completely, Chuck. I mean, Pete, I totally get that. What I took from Chuck's conversation, the biggest part that got to me that I'm going to focus on today for my own self is self-responsibility, self-awareness, removing the ego concept. That's a very important statement. My doctors have talked to me about that at length. It's a big issue that people have because we feel that we're stronger than we probably are, given the incident that we've survived or whatever we've been through. So yeah, self-responsibility, Chuck. Great statement. What a program. I'm really looking forward to reading through the material about it. And I would like your permission to be able to share that with other people, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now we have a podcast and we have an online journal. And the whole point of that is the podcast, we talk about topics that we think that are important for exactly that, what we're discussing here. How do people better themselves physically, mentally, etc. Like the one we're about to release in 2 weeks is with CC Kraft. She is the head mental performance coach of the Phillies. So we talk about things like that. The one we just released is with Iman Koffel, the person I mentioned earlier that he's my editor in chief. He released an article and it's all about overcoming your demons and about dealing in stressful environments. Right. And
yes.
And how to do that. And that's kind of our theme is anything that has to do with.
I can't hear him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened. Can you hear us, Chuck? We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
All right. Well, hey, Hal, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really enjoying this interview right now with Chuck. The information that he's sharing, as we both know, is invaluable. And it isn't about just people in the military. This is about everybody and the day-to-day dealing with. Still can't hear you, brother. The day-to-day dealings that we are confronted with as we have people that come into our lives and in front of us. And how do we aid and assist?
Check 1 2.
There we are. We got you, brother.
Copy. Yeah.
What's going on there?
That was the devil stepping in, bro.
Yeah, bro, hey, that's a real statement. Somebody told me like the devil will always
step
try to
in,
stop you from.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Is that better? Check.
It's good. We got you, brother. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It did that with last time I was on the show too. Anyway, the devil will always try to stop you from making an impact, right? Like every time.
Well, he's an eagle. He's an eagle builder, brother. The devil.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Always wish me, but I think ego, like I said earlier, like ego is just your sense of self-worth. Is when ego gets out of balance, right? But I often think that that's just like forces of nature trying to like, hey man, like, you are so badass, or you could do, right?
Yeah.
Like yes, look how awesome I am, and that's when you start. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I gotta ask you something, Chuck. How does it feel after 26 years serving in the military? How are your feelings? How are you dealing with the leaving all of that and entering into the civilian way of life? Where are you at with that?
I'm excited about it. I think I've done a really good job of prepping myself internally for this. I'm just finishing up my my bachelor's degree, which I'm in my last class right now, and I'll continue with my master's degree. It's just part of my philosophy that we can't rest on our laurels and we should always continue to educate ourselves. So that just goes along that line of effort for me. But I've got the objective RK thing. I've got some other stuff. If you guys got your computer in front of you and you want to see something funny, go to www.chuckritter.com. It's just silliness. I don't know how that thing makes money. It does though. I don't even have that link to search engines, but I believe that silliness is one of those things missing a lot of times. People take themselves too seriously.
I love it. You're right. It does. It's pretty good.
But yeah, I'm ready for it because I do have a normal job lined up too, just because I want to stay busy and I want to stay mentally challenged, right, with everything I'm doing. So, man, I'm excited. And I when I look at other people that get out and they have some issues, I think that they end up making the military their personality, which is easy to do. I think a lot of times people make whatever trauma they went through their personality, and which is fine to an extent. But the reality is that trauma or the military, that's a part of your personality. It's a part of you, but it shouldn't. No single thing in life should define you, right? So I think that if you let yourself be defined, like your natural tendency is going to be like to gravitate and be defined by something, right? That's just human nature. But it's like, okay, well, the military is it's a part of my story, but it's not my whole story. It's not, who I am. It's just part of who I am. So I think once I learned to accept that, I feel pretty good about it. I'm excited. It's been cool.
I think, Chuck, that what it is with you, Chuck, is it's the military aspect of your life is merely the foundation of the story yet to come.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, right? Yeah.
Well, and talking about getting your degrees and stuff right now, life skills and life experiences are very important. I have a doctorate. It took me 13 years to get there and do that. A lot of those years I did while I was in federal prison, cramming like crazy to get my studies done. Because you know what? The balance between academics and life skills is so important. It's a pattern of discipline, if you will, that comes into the construction of getting your degree programs completed. Everything is about discipline, especially when you're putting the lives and caregiving of other people into your hands. You want to not only be objective, but you want to be knowledgeable and believe in what you are conveying to that person.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, we got about 5 minutes left here, so I want to do a closing out with each one of us giving some kind of a statement of encouragement, truth, and what Chuck hit on today, being real with yourself. I absolutely love that, Chuck. That's what I took from your interview today, strongest part. And I'm going to try my best to apply that to my life as I deal with my struggles and deal with treating others with struggles. And this is my 5-minute chatter about it. I really appreciate the input with that type of conversation today. It's so important that we accept responsibility for the circumstances we find ourselves aligned with in the moment of dealing with depression, dealing with stress, dealing with anxiety, dealing with a lack of understanding of how to get ourselves out of the rabbit hole. Yeah. So these programs that you're talking about are not only essential, but they're life-saving programs. And I speak that as a man that's carried PTSD for decades, and that's not ego, Chuck, Pete. What it is reality and accepting the reality of my frailties as a result of what I survived and went through. So having said that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Chuck, and then Pete, you close us out. And again, Chuck, not only thank you both for your service to our country, but nothing but the greatest of respect. And I love that we continue on in our journeys after even doing that, which has been so familiar to us for so many years. Thank you both, brothers. Thank you.
So I'll leave it with one of our taglines for Objective Arte is embrace adversity. Embrace it. Every morning you wake up like, hey, bring it, because I know I'm going to transmute any obstacle. I'm going to overcome anything. I'm going to turn that into a win. And failure and defeat aren't synonyms. You can fail over and over. Just take it. Okay, I screwed this up. Let me learn from this, because failure is a springboard to become legendary if you use it right, and it's not defeat. So, and life is never like, if you're just waiting for that perfect, like, oh man, I'm waiting for all this BS to get over with so I can be happy. Like, nah, man, it's never going to stop. So you got to enjoy the journey, because the journey is all you got. Learn to enjoy the journey and all the crap it throws at you. And when you find yourself in those mental pits, and be like, you know what? It's okay to be here because I'm a human. Now let me figure out how to turn this into something where I can actually strive from it and use it as a springboard to become legendary, instead of just being like, oh man, everything sucks. Because you know what? It's always going to suck. If you're a Christian, look in the Bible, none of the apostles except for John the apostle made it out without suffering a horrible death. You're like, well, I should become a Christian.
Exactly.
The whole point is, if you're living with purpose and intentionality, you should be willing to suffer through all that, right? You should be willing to just enjoy the journey, even if it's kicking you in the private parts. So that's my ending 5 minutes.
That's perfect, brother. and that's real. Okay, Pete, close us out, buddy.
It's hard to follow you guys, man.
It was.
Mine will be really short. The biggest thing I think about when we hold ourselves accountable to get better, PTSD and all these kinds of things, is if you could see, or you all could see my wound on my skin externally, my PTSD,
Yes.
I would treat me kinder and softer and gentler. Be like, hey, slow down. You're hurt pretty bad right now. Like, let's put some salve on it or something. But we don't see it. And so other folks don't understand how to treat us. We tend to ignore it. And so think about, what that wound looks like if you put it on you externally, so that you can make it okay to, like, hey, today's a day when I care for myself. Today's a day where I make sure I do my steps. I'm going to go over to operationarete.com and I'm going to read a journal article, and I'm going to spend time in that. I'm going to do, almost like a devotional. And so that work, if you just do it constantly, you can learn to master, or at least control for a just long time, the things that come from PTSD, these damaged moments. And I think the world of you guys. Hal, I love you, and Chuck, your record is so impressive. And the way you look at this, and also going through Honor Foundation. Oh my gosh, this is a thing that Chuck did with the foundation that this guy, we've had on the show, his name is Dustin Musselman, and he just built this wonderful accelerator for people who are getting out of the military, from the Special Forces group of people, and things like that. There's a lot of groups out there trying to help us be better and to deal with these things. So love the people around you, talk to them, take them out, go get fellowship, and spend time working on yourself, especially way before you're desperate for help. Get out there and get to work. That's my 5. Hal, back to you.
Yeah, well said, brother. And again, guys, have a great day. God bless each and every one of you. God bless your families, your friends, those that we keep in memory that are no longer with us. Someday we'll all cross the rainbow bridge and be with them anyway. And thank you both, gentlemen, for this amazing conversation.
Okay, folks. Well, that wraps up another episode today. And I'd like to take this moment to thank each and every one of you for taking your time to catch our show. Now, if you like these shows, I would ask that you would please hit like, share, and subscribe. It's so important to us that we get these messages out, and we understand that these are graphic, almost toxic interviews. But, this is the kind of impact that we feel is needed in order to make sure that people understand the significance of the problems that we are confronted within our own country and around the globe. So I'm going to say at this time that I love you all. God bless you all. Hasta luego, y vaya con Dios, and go Victors.